Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back here with our friend, our engineer, our author, and so much more. Marcelo Brazzi joining us here today live from the beautiful West Coast. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. It's probably warmer out there than it is here, but it's uh, looking
It's great.
forward to. You got a little fog out there. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm still in the same place, but there's a lot of fog in the background.
Oh my goodness, but that's Long Beach, California, right?
Right, and we've been having a lot of cold weather here, so you might actually be warmer than we are.
Oh my goodness. Well, pleasure to have you here. Please introduce yourself to everyone before we begin.
Yeah, my background is I got a master's degree in systems engineering. I was a spacecraft engineer on the Apollo program. Done a lot of traveling. I've chased the solar eclipses across the world. Done a lot of hiking in different countries. I've been to most countries I've been to, but there's still a lot more that I'd like to go to. I have 3 grown kids, and we like to get together for parties and stuff like that. So, and then I really have been into writing most of my life, writing technical stuff and university stuff. And so I got into writing, and my first book was about the family and our ancestors and our lives and all, everything about the family stuff. Because I always wanted to know about my family and my ancestors. So I did a little research and put together a book, and it's been a pretty good book. Then I got into this book that we're talking about here. It's the title of the book is The Liberal Record. I got a picture of it here. I don't know if you can see a picture of it.
Mm-hmm. The Liberal Record.
Yeah, I'd like to get into some of the problems. This is all in a book, but I'd like to get into some of the problems with healthcare. But before we do that, I'll give you a little more background that may be of interest. I thought I'd spend a few minutes just talking about my adventures of chasing the solar eclipses around the world. Just for general knowledge, a solar eclipse is different than a lunar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's important about the solar eclipse is that it's a very narrow path on the Earth. It's not very wide. It's very narrow.
Yeah.
And it's only about 50 miles wide, and it goes over your head in less than 5 minutes, about 3 or 4 minutes. So you gotta be ready for it. A couple of unique things about the solar eclipses. First of all, we will have one in the United States in October. It will be an annual eclipse, which is not the complete 100% full eclipse, but it's a legitimate eclipse. And in 2024, we will have a major eclipse, goes from Mexico up to Canada, right across the United States. So that's, that will be of some interest. Let me just tell you one of my experiences, maybe kind of a little bit of an adventure we had. The eclipse was scheduled to be in northern Thailand, north of Chiang Mai. So me and a friend flew to Bangkok, and then the plan was that this guy was running a bus tour. And so we said, well, instead of renting a car, why don't we just get on the bus tour? And So we get on the bus tour, but the bus driver organizer, he didn't know anything about the eclipse. So he just starts going up slowly up to Chiang Mai. And before you know it, we're running into head-to-head, tail-to-tail traffic.
Wow. Yeah, of course.
I tried to get him to delay the eclipse, but nobody wanted to delay the eclipse. The sun and the moon are going where they're going. So I was getting really nervous, and he was collecting money for the tour. And I said, I'm not paying you unless we get there on time. So we were it's just barely getting up there, and I was getting more nervous. Well, because the eclipse has the center of the eclipse is a narrow band, but the partial eclipse covers a wide area. So as we're going up there where there's a sign that says, oh, here you can see the eclipse.
Uh-huh.
Well, that was the edge of the partial eclipse.
Oh
Not
my
the,
gosh.
yeah. So, so at that point, everybody starts stopping. And I knew that we had to go to the center of the eclipse, and I told them that, so from that point
Mhm.
forward, we didn't have any traffic, and we, zoomed down the highway, and we got there. I set up all my cameras and everything, and we finally made it. But that was just one of, different experiences. And I would like to say that, we got a couple eclipses coming up in the United States, and I would strongly recommend everybody, go out of your way a little bit and go see one. It's a once in a lifetime experience, and you'll watch the sun slowly disappear. And it's a very interesting thing. One thing is very curious about our eclipse, very amazing. The sun is 400 times the size of the moon. And the sun, by coincidence, is 400 times farther away than the moon. Well,
Mhm.
those two numbers together means that from our point of view, the sun and the moon are exactly the same size.
Yeah.
Now that is almost impossible throughout the universe, but we are just fortunate to have that situation. So anyway, that's just one little tale of some of my background experience.
Well,
Yeah.
when is the next eclipse?
There's an annular eclipse, which means that the moon is in the center of the sun, but there's still a little bit of the sun shining
Yeah.
around. That's an annular eclipse. That's October 14th this year. And it starts in Oregon and it goes down to Texas.
Okay.
That's the next
Interesting.
one. Yeah. And the one after that is April 8th
Mhm.
in 2024. And that's a big one. That's a total solar eclipse. And it starts in Mexico and goes all the way up across the states, the central states, to Canada. And I'm sure everybody's going to try to be there to see that.
Yeah.
So you don't miss it. And we'll get your dark glasses. You have to have welder's glasses. Actually, don't your regular sunglasses are not going to work. You burn holes in your eyeballs.
Oh my goodness. It's
So
that intense.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you have to have a special welder's dark glasses is what you need. So make sure you get that, or you burn your eyeballs out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I thought I'd like move on and talk about something, and thinking about it, there's one thing that's I believe needs to be said. It's very important. And I've kind of been talking around it, but I think I need to be more explicit on it. And that is that the book I've written is full of information that very few people are aware of. I mean, I didn't just cover stuff that's, everyday
Mm-hmm.
history. There's almost every page in that book, there's something that is new and people are not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I wrote, it took me 3 years of research, and the index alone is like 250 items. So, and not those are the reasons for the reviews. The reviews have been outstanding, and it's mostly because the content of the book is not just everyday things that everybody knows about. It's all unusual things. I'll give you just a couple examples. The Civil War, there's been some controversy about the Civil War, about what it was about, who started it, why we did it, and all that kind of stuff. Well, rather than sit around the bar, hanging out in the bar and talking about it, I dug up the articles of secession that the states wrote. Every state that seceded from the Union, they wrote up articles of secession. And if you dig hard enough, you can find those. Well, those explicitly tell you and state the whole reason for the secession and the Civil War and the whole thing. They're all spelled out very clearly. And if you read every one of them, I got a couple of them in the book. It's obvious that the whole world war was nothing about basically nothing except slavery. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the southern states, they just think the Northerners are crazy to be thinking slavery should be abandoned. But anyway, the Articles of Secession are an example of some unique information that's in this book, and I think people would like. Couple people that I mentioned that have some interesting things in the book that might be of interest. One of them, Alan Greenspan, he was the head of the the federal bank for like 20 years. And he actually admitted in a congressional hearing, and this is again something that not
Wow.
everyone is aware of, but he admitted it in a congressional hearing that
Mm-hmm.
Republicans made a mistake when they repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. The Glass-Steagall Act prevented speculation,
Wow.
but
Mm-hmm.
and Alan Greenspan was an extreme conservative. So, but that's a point that I think people need to be aware of, these things that happen that most people don't know about. One other interesting one I'd like to just pass by real quickly. Benjamin Franklin, he was a liberal in our early days.
Mm-hmm.
His son was his best friend. Him and his son, William, was governor of Rhode Island, I think. They were best friends, but his son was a liberal and he was a conservative. And they went back and forth and argued, just like you hear people nowadays, it's an old story. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is that they never did settle their differences, at least Benjamin didn't. He disowned his son and never spoke to him the rest of his life. And he died just never speaking again to his son because of differences in politics. So
Yeah.
maybe that's a warning we should take heed of, and don't take your politics too serious. Personal lives are more important. One last quick one is the Republicans actually at one point in time passed a law that outlawed the free markets. Now,
Mm-hmm.
most people would say, well, that don't make any sense. They never did that. Yeah, they did. They outlawed the free markets in drug pricing when the Medicare thing, they passed a law that said you could not negotiate free market prices for drugs. So again, this is something that should be in general knowledge that the average person should be aware of, but they aren't. So I'm just making the point that there's a lot of information in this book, which is not everyday knowledge that the average person is not aware of. And I think anyone who reads it, and if you can see from the reviews, that it's just a fascinating read. And you will, one reviewer said they couldn't put the book down. So anyway, are we running out of time?
No, we're good. We're good.
We got time. Good. So let me give you some information about healthcare. There's a big misconception about healthcare. A lot of people think that the United States has the best healthcare in the world, and it's we because the United States, we have everything and all this that. Well, the fact is that two things. One thing, first of all, the healthcare in the United States is extremely expensive compared to other countries. I can talk a little bit more about that. But the other thing is that people have the misconception that people are happiest with our healthcare system. But if there are polls out there that they take of different on almost anything, you can find a poll for just about anything you want.
True.
Yeah, and the polls on healthcare satisfaction by country, you'll find that many countries, the citizens are much more satisfied with their healthcare than the people in America are in the United States. Yeah, I'm not saying we have a bad system. I'm just saying the reality is that we are very expensive and we aren't the best in terms of that. We may be the best in technology, but they're all pretty up to speed on that. the reasons for the expense are kind of interesting. And these are things that most people aren't aware of. And again, they should be aware of this.
Excuse me.
One of them we've already talked about, and that was the outlawed the medical price negotiating prices on drugs. That caused America and Medicare drugs to be much more expensive than any other country. And in the book, I have tables. I show different prices in different countries for different drugs to explain, that problem that we had. Another point is that the CEO salaries from insurance companies and top management are in the range of $25 to $30 million per year. Now, from my point of view, I'm just wondering what
Yeah. You're like, wait, what?
what do I have to do to get paid $30 million a year? And I can't imagine what that person is doing,
Would be. Mhm.
that some other guy couldn't do. I mean, we have in the United States, we have hundreds of thousands of very high skilled businessmen and scientists and bankers and everything, and I'm sure there are dozens of people, hundreds of people who would do the same job of a CEO, insurance CEO, for maybe 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. So it's hard to justify these $1 million salaries. And that there's actually true pretty much across most of the industry in the United States. A lot of CEOs are making thousands of times more than the average worker. And the average workers, a lot of them, today, they have a trouble making ends meet. And some of them have 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent. Well, that's not right. I mean, I don't deny, top business people or anybody to make money. Sure, great, make money. I no problem with that. But 30 million for what? I mean, that's one of the reasons our healthcare in the United States is very expensive. But let me go on to a couple more. Because we have so many insurance companies, and the billing is extremely complicated. You don't just write on the back of an envelope, oh, this costs $5,000 and that's the end of it. No, they got databases and people involved. It's a big operation. Just doing the coding for the medicine and the procedures. X-ray on this is one procedure, X-ray on that is something else. MRI is something. It's a whole big complicated system. And to work in that field, you have to be certified and go to school for like 6 months or a year or to a year just to learn how that system works. Well, again, this is something I was surprised to learn. I was not aware of that. I don't think most people are aware of that. These people make $50,000 a year, which is not bad. But there's, if we didn't have this complicated system with all these different procedures and insurance companies and all that, that's a big overhead expense that other countries don't have. In fact, the Government Accountability Office, they did a study, and they found that if we could eliminate all this overhead, the billing and the problems with the medical code readers and coders and the salary overheads, we could pay for the medical care for almost all the uninsured people. One other thing is thinking. How was that?
What was that? Can you hear me? I still hear you.
There's a
Big, I thought something happened. About winds again?
Yeah, I have to remember to put this thing in the bathroom.
Well, you look high up though too. How many floors up are you?
28.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's definitely windier up there, right?
No, we don't have any wind today. This was an emergency. What is it? A highway emergency. Somebody was kidnapped, or they something like that. Some emergency alert. But I will bury my phone for next future things. It never happened. That happens like once a week or once a month, And then, so anyway, I was going to talk about one other item in the expense of healthcare. The government healthcare was started by most countries after World War II. And the 1949 healthcare in the United States was proposed, but the Republicans and a lot of the medical people, they were opposed to it very strongly. They're all against the government system. Well, that continued forever. I mean, for like 50 years, the concept of a new universal general health care, by the way, it came up several times. Came up once under Clinton. Clinton had a big proposal for a healthcare system, and that got shot down. The Republicans have always opposed every healthcare proposal that was ever brought up. Finally, Obama got some sort of a healthcare thing passed with the Obamacare insurance thing, but that's not really the same thing, but it's kind of a step in the right direction. Anyway, the Republicans felt that, well, now they had to come up with something. They could no longer just say we're not going to support it. So they had to come up with an alternative. And this gets interesting. They worked very hard on an alternative. In the end, it was just a big handout to the medical field, and it was more for the business than it was for the people. But in the process, and this is what's interesting, in the process of developing this Republicans program, the concept of what do you call it, government option. The government option was discussed. Well, what the government option is that you could have your insurance and you could have your program and your Blue Cross and all that, no problem. But if you wanted to, you could go and take the government option. The government option was they would provide the insurance pretty much like any other insurance company, except you were going through the government. Well, the Republicans opposed that. Now, you would think, well, the Republicans are probably opposing that because they're saying, well, the government operations are inefficient. They're not very effective. The government doesn't know how to, it's not competitive capitalism, and, the government doesn't know how to run a business. That's not their job. That's what you think they would say, but that's not what they said. They actually publicly said that they were opposed to the public option because it would be too efficient. It would be too affordable. It would put out business insurance companies. They knew that all this overhead I've been talking about, the medical coders and the salaries and the outlawed free, all that stuff would not be a problem with the government option. And that's why they were opposed to it, which is just opposite of what they have always been on about. The on that thing about the outlawing the free market, you can go back and check. There was a Republican from Louisiana, a guy named Bill Towson, and he was put in charge of coming up with a plan to pay for the medical drugs. Well, he turned the plan over to the drug companies, and he had the drug companies write the bill. That's like giving the fox the key to the hen house.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, but
That's what happens.
That's what happened. So the drug companies wrote the bill, and if you're a company, what would be the best thing you could have for your company? The best thing you could have for your company is no competition. If you could pass a law where you would have a monopoly and no competition, that would be a dream. So that's what they did. The medical drug companies, through Bill Towson and the Republicans, they passed this bill that basically outlawed the free markets.
Yeah.
So that's just another thing. Most people would not be aware of that. And again, let me just repeat myself that's the reason I'm writing this book, for all of these things of this nature that people are not aware of. And the book is full of them. There's like, well, I mean, I just have a whole table that goes on forever. And like, again, once more, I'll mention that the reviewers were all, they're some of the best reviews I could have imagined. This is, must read, everybody should read this book, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that was another item that for me to write this book. And healthcare is a big issue in America. It still is. And I think someday, eventually, we will have a healthcare program like other countries have.
Mm-hmm.
Even today, we have a lot of people going bankrupt. They get run up so many bills. I don't know why my phone keeps ringing.
You're popular. People are reaching out.
I thought I turned it off.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's not
Happens to me sometimes. Mine's on fire, but sometimes it rings by accident. So I get it. Don't
Yeah.
worry. We got 4 minutes left.
Okay. So I forgot what I was talking about, but I just wanted to say that this is, the reason that I wrote the book is so that people would know these things that the average person doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Out of here, go throw it in another room.
That's
Great.
great.
Anyway, so that's pretty much everything. The one last, I think we got a couple minutes left, maybe.
Yep. 4.
Or okay. One of my problems is that I think I've mentioned it in the past, that a lot of these issues that we've been talking to, a lot of these issues we've been talking about, the the Democrats have never made an issue out of them. They've never, these are all problems, like I said, that people should be aware of them, but they're not.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my complaints is that the Democrats should be explaining all these things that you and I have been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
These things should be made known to everybody. And two of my favorite examples, there's a lot of examples, but two of my favorite is the fact that the economy has always done better under Democrats.
Okay.
And nobody knows that. I mean, if I was running a campaign, I would I would be telling people that the economy has always done, and I'm not just saying in general, I'm saying in specifics. You go look at the GPS, look at the jobs, look at the profits, stock market, everything has always been better under Democrats. But if you talk to the average person, they'll say, oh no, you want a good economy, it's the Republicans. No, it's not. And this is the kind of thing that should be made known, but the Republicans are terrible at informing the public. And one last one is the stolen election. There's still many, many people that believe the election was stolen in 2020. Well, the thing I've raised often is that there were 160 election polls prior to the election, and that includes the Republican poll, the Fox News poll, and other polls. Every one of them predicted exactly the outcome that what Biden would, his percentage of winning was. Now, that is impossible if you had fraud and stolen elections and everything. That's totally impossible. And when I raise this issue with people who believe in the stolen election, they have no answer. They just kind of like, oh, that's so that kind of wraps up what I like to talk
Focus
about
on for today.
and but I'm open to any questions or problems or whatever. My email address is marcello.brazzi@aol.com. That's Marcello with one L and Brazzi with 2 Z's at aol.com. And the book is at the website, www.theliberalrecord.com. And I'm always happy to get emails, even if you're going to call me 4-letter words. I'll still.
No. We'll call you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 6. We have the 7-letter word. Marcelo. All right. Thank you so much, Marcelo Brazzi. And again, to pick up a copy of the book, remind us again of where we can get it.
It's available on Barnes and Noble, Amazon. Those are the primary outlets.
Perfect. Well, pleasure speaking with you again and looking forward to next week when we chat again. Have a great day. Hopefully it warms up. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.